Electricity. It powers our smartphones, our coffee machines, televisions, iPads, microwaves, and even cars. It powers our entire economy. So many conveniences and forms of entertainment await us just a single plug away. It's something most of us take for granted. But this isn't the reality for everyone. Today, over 700 million people in the world still don't have access to electricity. Okra is a startup whose goal is to try and get this number down to zero. In 2021, they electrified 3,000 homes, and in 2022, their goal is to triple that number. Out here, building traditional transmission lines and equipment is just too expensive and can't be justified for traditional utilities. Stung Tro has just been connected to electricity for the first time just recently. The village has gotten their first ever washing machine, which allows families to save hours and hours of time, freeing themselves up to do other things, and allowing them to dream of a better future for their families.
Like after this machine available here, the machine was helping her first. She can spend time for cooking, taking care of family, clean the house, so it's really helped her a lot.
So why do so many villages like this, all over the world, still lack access to any electricity? Well, the problem is known as the last mile problem. When a lot of people live close together, like in a city, it's relatively cheap to get many houses connected to electricity at once. That's just economies of scale. But when you get out to rural areas, houses are spaced a lot further apart, so they need a lot more cabling to reach. Houses out here generally use a lot less electricity, so there's less money for an electricity supplier to make. Higher costs and lower revenues means lower profits. This means there usually isn't a business case for getting electricity out to these last few homes. This is known as the last mile problem in energy access, because the majority of the cost in building the electricity grid is always in getting it to people in those last few miles. This is true in all areas, but in the countryside, it means that people are simply left without electricity from the grid. So, since it's too expensive to connect the main electricity grid out to somewhere like Stung Tro, how can we get houses like this connected to electricity? First up, there's Standalone Solar, which looks a lot like the solar panel you might have on your own roof. Once you add a battery, you can potentially use the power day and night. But let's say you've got a bunch of houses powered like this, each house with its own panel and batteries. On any given day, someone might need more energy than they've stored up, while other people around them might not be able to use all the energy that they've got stored. So in this scenario, there's no way for spare electricity to be shared from people who have an excess to those who need more. Alternatively, you could connect a bunch of these solar panels together into, say, a little solar farm and power all of the houses from a central location. This is what's called the mini-grid. It makes it possible for everyone to just take what they need, provided there's enough power in total being generated by the panels. The problem with this is that as the grid expands, you need to send power to houses further and further away, which means you need to send it at a higher voltage to avoid too many power losses, which means using bigger cables, bigger equipment, and at a bigger cost. There is a third option, which is the mesh grid. This method combines the strategy of the first two, with solar panels installed on the roof of each house, combined with batteries to store extra energy. But instead of being standalone, these houses are connected together with other nearby houses, forming a mesh. Houses that use more energy can get it from houses that are generating more than they need. And because power is being produced all over the grid, not just in one place, the houses at the end don't require bigger cables to send power to. As more houses enter the network, the mesh grid expands easily. Okra is a startup that is using mesh grids to bring electricity to last mile rural communities, to get the rest of the world connected, who until now have been left out. The challenge here is that it's not as simple as simply plugging in a cable at each house. The setup requires a technology to get everything working together. There are some important questions that need answering. How do you keep track of who's using how much? How do you safely share power between houses? How do you ensure there's enough power to go around? Okra is solving all of these challenges and more. And their answer to these questions is the Ocrapod. Every piece of the system connects to this, from the solar panel to the battery to the house next door, and even appliances. It's what enables their mesh grid technology. It keeps track of things like who's using electricity and when, as well as noticing if anything has stopped working. And it uploads all of this data, and more, to the cloud. Okra have developed a platform called Harvest that analyzes this data. It can automatically work out billing and send technicians out there if there are any problems, plus a whole lot of other features that make rolling out and running mesh grids a whole lot easier. In another video, I'll be diving deeper into what makes the Ocrapod and the Harvest platform so good for these mesh grids, as well as how Okra makes sure that these grids keep running smoothly. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching.